Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com for non-boxing picks. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. This video is really from a gambling perspective, not a boxing fan perspective. We're just looking at guys who, for whatever reason, may have fallen out of favor, may be overlooked or taken for granted, who you want to circle their names on your list of boxers as guys who, quite frankly, you want to gamble on in certain ways in their next fight. These are the guys I think are undervalued at the end of 2015. Some of them are big names. Some of them aren't. First, right? If the fight's taking place at 140 or 147, I believe you're going to get compelling value on Manny Pacquiao right now, right here, right? I'm a guy who likes to buy low, right? I don't want to bet on the guy when everyone is overvaluing the guy, right? Anthony Joshua, for example. I don't want to go in that direction. Rather, I want to go with a guy who, for some reason, other people are putting other fighters on the same level as. Now, we're hearing a lot of people clamor for Manny Pacquiao to fight Terence Crawford, right? Or to fight someone like Keith Thurman, who's unbeaten at 147 and who has a big punch. I'm just here to tell you that Manny Pacquiao has a huge punch. And he has hand speed and angles I don't believe Crawford or Thurman would be able to handle. Right? I haven't seen Crawford in the ring against a guy with this combination of power and speed. Right? I'm not sure if Keith Thurman would be able to find Manny Pacquiao in the ring. I know Pacquiao would be able to find him. Now, I understand Pacquiao is coming off surgery. You certainly need to pay attention to that. Understand, Pacquiao insists on fighting guys who are bad matchups for him, right? Floyd Mayweather. Everyone remembers that fight. Pacquiao lost the fight and did the unforgivable by claiming an injury after a loss, right? Claiming he wasn't 100% going into the fight. Right? Pacquiao, of course, also insisted on fighting Juan Manuel Marquez several times. Understand, Marquez and Mayweather were two of the hardest matchups in the entire sport of boxing. Right? Pacquiao beats most men. It takes a master boxer, right? A master strategist to disarm him. Now, I'm not quite ready at this stage to put Terence Crawford on the same level as Floyd Mayweather, right? Put me among those, and I understand Pacquiao has an eye on politics. Pacquiao's in his later 30s now. Pacquiao's thinking about life after boxing. I understand all of that, right? But let's just say, if that Terence Crawford-Manny Pacquiao fight gets announced, I'm rolling with Pacquiao. Right? Because I just believe Pacquiao's too sudden, hits too hard, has too much hand speed for Terence Crawford. I'm not going to confuse everyone with Floyd Mayweather. Understand, Mayweather's an outlier. Right? Best fighter of his generation. You don't run into Mayweathers that often. Right? You're looking for undervalued fighters, and I know Pacquiao's highly rated on boxrec.com. I'm just telling you, just reading the comments here online, a lot of people are taking a lot of new fighters over him. Understand, I think Pacquiao beats Crawford. I think Pacquiao beats Thurman. You don't have to worry about Victor Postal, who's dangerous. You don't have to worry about Miguel Cotto, who's dangerous, because they're both with Freddie Roach. Right? Pacquiao against Canelo, you're kidding me, right? I'd take Pacquiao in that fight all day. Pacquiao against Kell Brook. And let me say this too. Let's not get confused. Manny Pacquiao doesn't have to gain weight to weigh the same as these guys. I want everyone here to look up Henry Armstrong. Boxing's replete with guys. Look at Manny's own career, who fought bigger men but didn't have to weigh as much as them. Look at the weights before the LaMotta Sugar Ray Robinson fights. Understand, Manny's lighter weight. might actually help him because it makes him that much faster, and Pacquiao, trust me, is so sudden, his power would translate. I'd take Pacquiao over Danny Garcia. Let's talk about other guys. You heard me mention this guy earlier. Victor Postol. If you don't know who he is, you need to figure it out. This guy is fluid. He's fluid. He might be the most fluid fighter in the game. He pieces together 6, 7 punch combinations with his eyes closed. He's hard to find in the ring. You're not going to match him punch for punch. He's a combination puncher in a pot shot era, right? People don't talk about Victor Postol that much. It's their loss, right? This guy, if he ever decides to gain weight and wage war on 147, there are a lot of guys I'd take Postol over. I'd take Postol over Danny Garcia today, right? Let's look at the heavyweight division. I know everyone is looking at Anthony Joshua at heavyweight. He's supposed to be the future. Okay, great. Let me name 3 names who I'd probably take over Anthony Joshua. 3, right? Not including Tyson Fury or Vladimir Klitschko. And those 3 are Alexander Povetkin. That'd be a fascinating fight. Povetkin is the kind of guy who had a car crash. He had a bad fight against Vladimir Klitschko. Good luck trying to clinch Povetkin like that again. Right? He's learned his lesson. Right? Understand, sometimes it takes losses. It takes bad nights to learn a lesson. Look at Vladimir Klitschko's career, for example. Right? Well, let's just say Povetkin is still focused. In my opinion, he's deadlier than ever. Right? If Povetkin, Wilder's announced, I'll be here online making a video predicting Povetkin wins that fight. Right? I think Povetkin is the only guy at heavyweight. For all of you looking at that even money line right now on Tyson Fury against Vladimir Klitschko, the rematch, I believe Povetkin is the only guy at heavyweight who might be able to beat Tyson Fury. It'd be a great fight, right? I don't put Vladimir Klitschko in that category. I understand the betting public disagrees with me. That's fine. I'll be the guy on the other side of the play for most of you. I don't care. Let's talk about, the idea of Mexican-style fighting for a moment, right? I've heard guys like Gennady Golovkin say, hey, I fight Mexican style, right? Would it shock people to know that the man with the fastest hands in the heavyweight division, is Latino? He's unbeaten. I was just on boxrec.com. I was looking for his name. Folks, I was shocked. I was looking in the top 10. They didn't have him. I said, wow, he's ranked lower than I thought. Then I was looking at the top 20. They didn't have him. Right? That's when I realized this is compelling value. His name is Andy Ruiz. I'm telling you, this guy, well, I'll put it to you this way. If Anthony Joshua signs up to fight Andy Ruiz, put me down on the Ruiz side of the ledger. Simply too much hand speed. People keep looking at Ruiz's weight and stuff like that. Look, man, look at the hand speed. Right, look at the hand speed. Folks, the weight's not slowing him down. Let me also say this, too. People can criticize MMA and kickboxing all they want. I'm just telling you that guys with a kickboxing background have spectacular footwork. Right? Lucas Brown against Anthony Joshua. Folks, I'm rolling with Lucas Brown. Here again, unbeaten heavyweight. Why are we overlooking unbeaten heavyweights with, by the way, vastly more experience than Anthony Joshua? Right? So at heavyweight, 3 names I think are underrated and dangerous. Alexander Povetkin, Andy Ruiz, and Lucas Brown. I'll say this. I don't expect Deontay Wilder to suddenly announce he's fighting any of these three. Let's get real. He'd rather fight Artur Szpilka, right? He's not going to mess around with Andy Ruiz, even though Ruiz is not ranked in the top 20, because he understands if Ruiz gets inside of his jab and his long right hand, this is going to look like Sugar Ray Leonard against Tommy Hearns. The middle of that fight when Ray Leonard started teeing off on the inside. Let's talk about a guy who, quite frankly, the more you look at him, the more you might have been deceived. Right? This guy is clearly one of the best in boxing, on the very short list of the best pound for pound. I'm just here to tell you that because this guy was fighting with a bum shoulder, this is while all of us were watching him. Because this guy was fighting with a bum shoulder, we didn't appreciate the fact that this guy has a lethal right hand. You've seen it in one fight, right, recently. His fight against Paul Smith. Right? The guy I'm talking about is Andre Ward. I'm just here to tell you, and I think it's a prop that we need to circle on the calendar, right? I mean, just circle and say, if a Ward fight's announced, I need to look at the odds on this prop. And the prop is Andre Ward by KO. I'm telling you, the guy was fighting with a bad shoulder. When I first started watching Andre Ward, I was asking myself, is he a righty or a lefty? Right? The guy was trying to hide his right hand. Think about it. He was trying to hide his right hand. Folks, the right hand is back. Surgery was successful. I'm telling you, if this Andre Ward fought Carl Froch, I'd expect the KO. As it was with one shoulder, Andre Ward won the fight. Right? So, it's hard to call a guy who already is viewed as among the very best in boxing, pound for pound, as underrated. I'm just here to tell you, because Ward now has had successful surgery and now can throw that right hand with authority. Let me just say a couple of things. One, I know Golovkin's not crazy enough to fight Andre Ward. Right? I know that. Number two, for any Ward fight at 175, especially if the fight's against Adonis Stevenson, right? A southpaw who lines up with Ward's right hand, straight right. You need to, on the Ward side, let's say you hear the fight and you say, oh, I'm taking Andre Ward. On the Ward fight, you need to sprinkle some of what you bet on Ward by KO. Let me name some other guys who are underrated. You know, it's tough enough fighting a slick fighter, isn't it? Right? That's a disaster already. Guy's in front of you, you're throwing punches, he's going, he's dodging the punches, then you're getting hit upside the head with counters, right? You cover up top, then the guy's hitting you in the ribs and stuff like that. Then he's backing away, you can't even catch him. Just imagine if that fighter's a southpaw. Right? Now, I know this guy's had promotional problems. I know this guy's been out of the ring. You just need to know the name, and you just need to put the word real next to the guy's name. It's Demetrius Andrade. Right? This guy is that good. Right? All I can say is I'm not even worried about titles. This is the kind of guy who, if he signs to fight someone around his weight class or at 160, as long as the person is not, and I'll agree with this, Gennady Golovkin, right? Because Andrade likes to fight from the outside in my opinion, that's the wrong strategy against Golovkin. As long as Andrade's not fighting Golovkin, he's going to be a live underdog in the fight. Right? This guy is nice. Let me say this too. Andrade against Billy Joe Saunders, the champ at 160, one of the champs at 160. Look, man, I took Saunders against Andy Lee. I'm not a hater. Right? If Saunders signed up to fight Andrade, I don't care where the fight is. Right? It could be in Saunders' hometown. I'm taking Andrade. Right? Look, man, this is really for gamblers looking for value, right? I'm not trying to be a member of the crowd. I'm trying to beat the casino. Let's talk about other guys who are lethal. In fact, you heard me mention him earlier, Gennady Golovkin. You know, some champs have just added to their games, haven't they? In fact, let me name another guy, Gary Russell. Well, Golovkin, I thought, look, the way to give Golovkin a problem is the way Kasim Uma did. I believe Miguel Cotto would be a great matchup against Golovkin because Cotto can take you from the inside out. Right? You get Miguel Cotto fighting small, throwing one of boxing's best left hooks to your ribs. That's a problem. Well, Abel Sanchez and Golovkin now have Golovkin flashing a nice jab on the inside. Right? Flushing guys out of the pocket. It's like those old razor commercials. First he lifts you out of the pocket, then he takes you out. Because Golovkin's real game is to extend his arms. He's not trying to, lean on you or touch you. No, he wants to get leverage. He wants to extend his arms. As good as Golovkin was before the Lemieux fight, let's just say Golovkin is better now. As highly as we think of Golovkin, he might be underrated. Let me name another guy. It was my biggest mistake of 2015. I'm a big Johnny Gonzalez fan. Gonzalez was fighting Gary Russell. I saw Russell wilt against Lomachenko, right? I picked Lomachenko in that fight, right? So you know the rest. I thought, okay, Gary's always going 70 miles an hour. If you're a fastball pitcher who only throws fastballs, sooner or later, hitters are going to time you, right? I didn't see a lot of change of pace with Gary Russell, who has some of the fastest hands in boxing, right? Think Manny Pacquiao type hand speed. So you know the rest. I'm watching the fight, and lo and behold, there's Gary Russell changing gears. There are times in the fight where Gary stands there, right? He's pacing himself. As I saw the fight, I thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Well, I wasn't in as much trouble as Johnny Gonzalez was, right? Gonzalez got embarrassed that fight. Russell looked A+. I encourage you to revisit that fight. Understand, Gary's a champ. Right? And like Golovkin, he's underrated. When you have hand speed like this, and if you know how to use it, think about the guys with blinding hand speed you've seen, right? Ray Leonard, for example, right? The guys who know how to use hand speed, they flash it, right? They're going along at like 30. Suddenly, they're up at 70. That's when you catch guys clean, because guys think they have your pace timed. Then suddenly you're in there, you're emptying the gun. I would say Gary Russell is underrated. Let me say this too. If I said to you, hey, name me some light heavyweights, a lot of you are going to name, fighters based in Canada, right? Kovalev, big name. Stevenson, big name. Pascal, ruled the roost at one time, right? Andre Ward, new to the division. I might even hear some people saying Artur Beterbiev's name, right? Let me name a guy who, quite frankly, to me is dangerous on a big level. If you're a gambler, you already know who this guy is, because this guy's been cashing checks for you for some time. He has a belt. He's Jürgen Brähmer. He's a boxer's boxer. Guy has power. But the guy's really beating you with boxing skill and savvy. Right? Just understand, I would take Brähmer over Adonis Stevenson. Right? I think Brähmer's dangerous. I'd take Brähmer over Jean Pascal. Right? I think he's one of these champs who, low-key guy, you may not have heard much about him, but you need to circle his name. I think he deserves it. Right? Let me name another guy. And I'm expecting this guy to beat Keith Thurman. You heard me. And that's Shawn Porter. Right? All I could say is, Shawn Porter undressed Adrian Broner, didn't he? That fight wasn't competitive. If Shawn Porter didn't get cocky late in that fight, and get decked late in that fight, we'd be calling that fight a masterpiece. Right? That was a lopsided fight. Guys, they weren't close. Think about what Shawn Porter has done in the ring. Okay, I know he lost to Cal Brook. Fair enough, right? Cal Brook's still an unbeaten fighter. I know Julio Diaz gave him a hard time the first fight. Folks, they did have a rematch. Porter did win the rematch. Paulie Malignaggi is one of those slick fighters. He's hard to find in the ring. Malignaggi has an excellent jab. It's hard to close the distance on him. Right? Malignaggi went the distance with Miguel Cotto. Quite frankly, the stoppage in the Malignaggi-Ricky Hatton fight was ridiculous. Right? Malignaggi's corner seems to have panicked. Malignaggi then replaced his corner after that fight. It's very rare that you see Malignaggi as caught off guard by a guy's spacing and suddenness as he was when he fought Shawn Porter. Right? Porter's fought Devin Alexander, beat him. Paulie Malignaggi, beat him. Adrian Broner, beat him. Right? Someone's going to have to tell me why Keith Thurman's favored in their fight. I'm not sure if I get it. Do people think that Keith Thurman is going to be able to easily find Shawn Porter in the ring? I don't. Right? Keith Thurman's not fighting Robert the Ghost Guerrero here, folks. He's going to be fighting a mobile guy who knows how to pick his spots, who can throw punches from halfway across the ring, who can come in low. Right? I think Shawn Porter is underrated. Right? And it's a bit surprising because the guy's fighting big names. The guy's fighting real competition. And somehow he's underrated. Let me close by saying this. I'll agree. Some of these guys, aren't who you would want as spokesmen for the sport outside of the ring right now. Right? Folks grow into positions. You're a young guy with a lot of talent. You become a champion. You might not really know how to handle yourself in interviews. Right? You might not know what's politically correct. Right? You might be running off at the mouth at some event and not realize it's being taped, not realize that it's on the record. Now, I agree. Tyson Fury is growing up in front of us. Right? No question about it. He is. He's growing up in front of us. But understand, the Tyson Fury you saw against Vladimir Klitschko is just a fraction of who he is. Tyson Fury, that fight, is fighting on the outside. Right? Understand how comfortable he was on the outside in that fight. At one point, he actually, against Klitschko, who goes into the fight as something like a 3-1 favorite. Against a long-time reigning heavyweight champ, at one point, Fury puts his hands behind his back. I'm not kidding. He's that comfortable outside. Klitschko couldn't hit him. Right? Well, understand, Tyson Fury, the secret to him, one of them, is that he has a great inside game. Much better inside game than Vladimir Klitschko. You didn't see it because he was winning rounds without showing you the rest of his game. Right? This is like a football team where they're passing the football and gaining yards. You don't realize they can run the football. Right? Tyson Fury didn't win the heavyweight championship by accident. Folks, he is one of the most substantial heavyweights in a long time. Right? This guy, quite frankly, has the tools to really have a reign of some substance. I don't consider him to be, a flash in the pan, top dog at the moment. Right? I actually think that this guy with this skill set, understand how unique it is. The guy's like something like 6'8", 6'9", right? Can jab you stiff jabs with both hands. Can actually fight small. Look at the Derek Chisora fights, right? The first one is interesting, right? Derek Chisora is pretty good inside, right? Derek Chisora is pretty relentless. He gets completely taken out of his game inside by Tyson Fury. Now, when I see a Tyson Fury beat a Vladimir Klitschko, right, soundly, and then in the rematch, I see Klitschko still the favorite. I'm like, whoa, what? You know, was Klitschko in a car crash before he hopped in the ring against Tyson Fury? You know, if Klitschko was in a serious training camp before the first fight, what's he going to do differently? As I said in a pre-fight video for that fight, you know, no one wants Vladimir Klitschko to come in the ring and try to open up more than Tyson Fury fans. I mean, you know, if Klitschko comes in and thinks that he's in the Tony Thompson rematch, I'm guessing he gets stopped. Right? So I don't think people fully appreciate the upside to Tyson Fury. I think this guy is better than advertised. Folks seem to think that Klitschko had an off night. No, that wasn't an off night. That was a stylistic bad matchup for him. Right? Let me close, too, in saying at 168, you have a guy who's a dominant champion. Right? James DeGale is dominant, folks. Right? Let's just figure it out. He has a fight style where he, you know, picks his spots. Right? DeGale is measured. Sometimes he doesn't look energetic enough. Think the George Groves fight. Okay? Fair enough. But understand, that very fight style gives him the upper hand, since scoring's all about perception. When he's the champ with the title and you have to take the champ's title. Right? Good luck trying to bum rush James DeGale. Right? He has few pairs inside, if any. Few. Right? You're talking about a guy who, quite frankly, might rule 168 for a long time. You know, people are saying, oh, who's going to win? James DeGale, Badu Jack. All I could say is, you got to be kidding. I don't care who Badu Jack signed with. I don't care who Badu Jack knows. Right? I'm going to trust my two eyes. Right? If the two men in the ring are Badu Jack and James DeGale, and if the ref's not on the take, that's a mismatch, folks. A mismatch in a title unification. Think about the DeGale history here. His last two fights, right? The guy is, or at least two of his recent fights, the guy comes to Boston, comes to the U.S. to fight Andre Durrell. Then the guy goes to Canada to fight Lucien Boutte in Canada. Right? What happens if DeGale actually starts fighting people in neutral places? Right? So, all I can say is, again, you know, you're a gambler and you're looking for value and stuff like that. I'm just telling you, value is the gap between what the public thinks and what's really going on. I think Fury and DeGale could be dominant champions. I think at heavyweight, you know, guys like Povetkin, Andy Ruiz, Lucas Brown, they're being overlooked. I keep hearing too much about Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua. Far too much. Right? At 160, I'm hearing so much about Saul Alvarez. Right? When I'm looking around the landscape, I'm looking at Danny Jacobs and I'm like, whoa, you know, Canelo would be in trouble against Danny Jacobs. Then I'm hearing about Canelo against Gennady Golovkin. Folks, you're going to have to, you know, wait until Golovkin falls down a flight of stairs before that fight's even competitive, in my opinion. Well, anyway, that's how I see it. I know there's a Canelo fan out there who always complains that I bash him. Look, this is the adult section of the internet, right? My goal is to try to make money. If I think a fighter is a bit overrated, I'm going to mention it, right? So, and I'm aware of the fact that Joseph Parker is unbeaten. Okay, fair enough. Anthony Joshua is unbeaten. Fair enough. Hey, I'm going to take my chances. Understand, some of the guys I'm naming here, Andy Ruiz, he's unbeaten. Lucas Brown, he's unbeaten. Victor Postal, he's unbeaten. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for stopping by.